Welcome back, everybody. Today we're breaking down some really interesting comments from Nasdaq President Tal Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
He was just interviewed on Bloomberg TV's The Pulse with Francine Lacque.
Uh-huh.
And he gave us some pretty fascinating hints about what we can expect in the markets going forward.
Yeah.
From IPOs to AI
Yeah.
and even my personal favorite, crypto.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear his take, especially now with all the geopolitical craziness happening in the world right now.
Right.
But he actually seems pretty optimistic about some things.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Let's jump into that IPO market.
Okay.
Cohen actually sees a really bright outlook for 2025.
Wow.
He mentioned that Nasdaq had something like 150 IPOs this year with a 75% win rate. Now, I know not everyone is familiar with that term.
Right.
It basically means that 3/4 of those companies that went public actually saw their stock prices go up afterwards.
That's a pretty good sign that investors are feeling confident.
For sure. And he thinks this success is due to a few things.
Like what?
A healthy U.S. economy, companies with strong earnings, and also a bunch of companies that have been waiting for the right time to go public. And to top it all off, Nasdaq has this really cool tool called the IPO Pulse Index.
What's that?
Think of it like a weather forecast, but for IPOs.
You okay?
It looks at all kinds of factors, like company valuations, how much stock prices are fluctuating, and of course, those very important interest rates.
I see.
And right now, it's giving a big thumbs up for IPOs in 2025.
Nice. But even with all that good news, Cohen still recognizes that there's a big what if that could mess things up, those geopolitical risks we talked about before.
Yeah, exactly. They're like this unpredictable thing that could derail everything.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to Europe.
All right.
Cohen was pretty honest about the fact that European markets are facing some challenges,
Yeah.
especially compared to the U.S.
Yeah, for sure. And this is where things get interesting. He knows about the problems.
Yeah.
But he thinks Nasdaq can actually help fix some of them in Europe.
Okay.
He mentioned their work in Sweden and the Baltics as examples of success.
Tell me more about that. So in Sweden, it seems like they've got a really supportive environment for their businesses. Even pension funds and regular people are investing in smaller and medium-sized companies.
Oh.
And this has really helped create a really active market where investors feel good about putting their money in.
That's great. And what about the Baltics?
So over there, they've combined their central securities depositories, or CSDs.
CSTs.
Yeah.
What are those?
Just think of them as the systems that handle all the paperwork and transactions for securities.
Gotcha.
By streamlining this, it's made things more efficient and freed up money that can be used for other things.
That makes sense.
All right, we can't have this conversation without talking about crypto.
I know, I was just about to say this. I'm super curious to hear what you think since you're the crypto guru here.
Well, let's see what Cohen has to say.
All right, so he confirmed that Nasdaq is already in the crypto market, but they're not doing it the way you might think.
Interesting.
So he explained that they're mainly a technology provider in this space.
Offering a bunch of different services. Trading tech surveillance tools, for safety solutions, for handling things after a trade is made.
Yeah.
And even technology for custody services, which is a pretty big deal in the crypto world.
It is. They're involved in a lot of different parts of this.
They are. What's really amazing is that they work with around 3,500 institutions who are using their services already.
That gives them a ton of insight into what the big players want and need.
For sure. Now, even though they're involved in all these aspects of crypto, Cohen was clear that Nasdaq isn't changing their mind about offering custody services themselves.
Interesting.
They're not holding your Bitcoin just yet.
That's smart. They're playing it safe.
Definitely. It's a strategic move.
For sure. They're watching how things develop while becoming experts themselves.
Exactly. Like they're setting themselves up for success in the long run.
Yep.
Okay, we've covered IPOs, Europe, and crypto.
What's next?
Let's talk about artificial intelligence in finance.
Ooh, that's a hot topic right now.
It is. And Cohen made it clear that Nasdaq isn't just testing the waters. They're diving headfirst into AI.
I like their style.
He even called 2024 the year of AI activation at Nasdaq, with 2025 set to be the year of impact. And they're not limiting themselves to one type of AI either.
Okay.
They're using both algorithmic and generative AI,
Oh, wow.
which are two very different but powerful approaches.
I'm impressed.
And get this, we've already got 20 products powered by AI and something like 50 AI projects in the works.
50. That's a lot. They're really going all in.
They are. But they're also being smart about it.
How
They have two main goals.
Yep.
One is to use AI to improve their current products.
Got it.
like getting better returns for investors
Okay.
and managing risk more effectively.
Right.
Their second focus is on using AI to improve their own internal operations.
So basically becoming more efficient and giving their customers a better experience.
Exactly.
This is where things get really important, with AI becoming such a big part of our lives.
Yeah.
Cohen really stressed the need for strong control and guidelines when it comes to AI.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just build and use AI. You need to have the right rules and systems in place to manage it responsibly.
Yeah, and it seems like Nasdaq is taking this seriously.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's encouraging to see that they're being proactive about this. Because we've all heard stories about AI going wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about finding that sweet spot between using AI's power and making sure it's used ethically.
Absolutely. And the other thing I was happy to hear is how Cohen talked about their employees.
Oh, yeah.
They're dedicated to training their employees.
Yeah.
And giving them the skills they need to work in this new world of AI.
It's a smart move. Technology is only as good as the people using it.
So true. Investing in your employees is essential for any company.
Especially one that's embracing such game-changing tech like AI.
For sure. And it's a reminder for all of us, too.
Yeah.
We need to keep learning and growing to keep up with the rapid pace of change.
I couldn't agree more. So that wraps up the first part of our discussion.
Right.
From IPOs to Europe's market challenges, the rise of crypto, and the explosion of AI in finance. Tal Cohen has given us a lot to consider.
He has. It's clear that Nasdaq is a major player in shaping the future of finance. And I think one of the key takeaways from his interview is that change is happening whether we're ready or not.
So true.
The question is, how do we adapt and thrive in this new environment?
Absolutely.
Welcome back. It's really interesting to hear how Nasdaq is handling all these changes in the financial world.
It is. One thing that really stood out to me was how much Cohen focused on the human side of things.
Yeah.
Even while talking about all this advanced technology.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in all the excitement around AI and all its possibilities. But Cohen made it clear that Nasdaq's success depends on their people. Attracting talented people and keeping them, especially with AI, changing everything.
He actually said that managing talent is one of his biggest worries. It's not just about finding people with the right skills.
Right.
It's also about making sure everyone is comfortable working alongside these powerful AI systems.
And making sure they know how to use AI to do their jobs better.
Yeah.
It sounds like Nasdaq is putting a lot of effort into training and development programs.
They are. They want to make sure their workforce is prepared for this AI-driven world.
It's kind of like they're creating a system where humans and AI work together.
I see.
Each one using their strengths.
Yeah, it's not about AI replacing humans.
Oh.
It's about humans and AI making each other stronger.
Exactly. All right, let's switch gears and talk about global markets for a bit.
Okay.
Cohen had some interesting things to say about what's happening in London's secondary markets.
Oh, yeah?
He noticed a big jump in trading activity, and he thinks it's because of all the economic uncertainty going around.
It's like that feeling when you see storm clouds. You know, something's coming, but you're not sure what.
Exactly. That's how a lot of investors feel with all this talk about tariffs, trade wars, and just general uncertainty.
Right.
So they're going to these secondary markets to hedge their bets. It's like buying insurance for their investments.
I get it. They're looking for ways to protect themselves if things go south.
Yeah. And Cohen actually sees this as a good sign.
Yeah.
It means the markets are doing their job, providing tools for investors to manage risk. But Francine Lacque brought up a really interesting point.
What was that?
She asked if all this activity in secondary markets could mean fewer companies going public.
That's a good question. If companies can raise money and trade shares in these markets without the whole IPO process, they might not want to bother with going public.
Right. It's like taking the scenic route versus the highway. Sometimes the highway is just faster.
But Cohen doesn't think there's a direct link there. He still believes that things like good valuations, low volatility, and understanding what's going on with the economy, especially interest rates, are the main drivers for companies going public.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's still optimistic about the IPO market in 2025.
Yeah, he is. Saying that the current economic signs are positive.
But of course he knows those geopolitical risks could still throw things off.
Right. It's like trying to predict the weather weeks in advance.
Yeah.
You can look at all the data, but sometimes Mother Nature has other plans.
True. Now, Cohen also talked about something else pretty interesting. Global adoption of AI.
Oh, yeah. What did he say about that?
So he mentioned that Nasdaq was the first exchange to get regulatory approval for an AI order type. This happened last year, and he thinks the U.S. is leading the way in using AI in finance.
That's like the U.S. is setting the pace in this AI race.
At least for now. He also pointed out strong adoption trends in other places like Southeast Asia, India, and Latin America.
Those regions are known for their fast technological development.
They're definitely making their mark in the AI world. And in Europe, he sees progress in developing smart regulations for AI.
That's really important to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly.
It's like putting guardrails on a road. You want to allow for speed and progress, but you also want to make sure things don't go off track.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Now let's bring it back to crypto. Cohen shared some really insightful thoughts there.
Yeah.
And I'm eager to get your expert take on it as well.
Happy to share. So he reminded everyone that Nasdaq is already in the crypto market.
Right.
But mostly as a tech provider, this is something we're seeing across the whole financial industry.
You think so?
Yeah. Banks, asset managers, they're all seeing the potential of blockchain. But they're still a little hesitant to dive headfirst into crypto.
So they're partnering with companies like Nasdaq who can provide the tech and know-how.
Exactly. They're like, we're not ready to buy a yacht and sail the ocean just yet.
Right.
But we'll rent a kayak and paddle around the bay for a while.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So we know Nasdaq offers a bunch of services in the crypto space.
Yeah, like trading tech surveillance tools, solutions for after a trade is made, and even technology for custody services.
And that focus on custody technology is really interesting.
It is. Custody is all about keeping those digital assets safe and managing them. It's crucial for institutions to adopt crypto.
And remember, they already work with thousands of institutions.
Over 3,500 to be exact.
That's a huge advantage.
It is. They understand what big clients need, and they have the infrastructure to handle them.
Cohen also talked about how Nasdaq is pushing for balanced regulation for crypto.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people in the industry agree on.
It's a tough balance.
It is. You need rules to protect investors and make sure the market is fair.
Right.
But you don't want to kill innovation with too many rules.
Finding that sweet spot between freedom and security.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing discussion. The rules around crypto are always changing.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
It will. Now, even with all this crypto activity, Cohen made it clear that Nasdaq isn't changing their mind about offering direct custody services.
They're still not holding your Bitcoin.
Nope. They still think it's a business that needs a lot of money and has a lot of regulatory hurdles.
But that could change, right?
Oh, definitely. The regulatory landscape is constantly shifting.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of progress lately.
We have. The new administration might make things clearer, which could influence what Nasdaq decides to do. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
It is. Okay, so in this part of our conversation, we've talked about talent management, how global markets are doing the global rise of AI, and what role Nasdaq is playing in the crypto world.
We have. It's clear that the financial world is going through some big changes.
Huge changes.
Yeah.
But even with all that, there are some good signs.
Like what?
Companies like Nasdaq are innovating and adapting while also focusing on responsibility and thinking about the long term. Welcome back. We've talked about so much from Tal Cohen's interview on The Pulse with Francine Lacque.
We have.
From his surprisingly positive view on the IPO market to how Nasdaq is really leaning into AI and strategically navigating the crypto world.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how Nasdaq is positioning themselves as a key player in all these different areas.
They really are. They're not just reacting to change, they're shaping the future of finance.
Right. It's like they're playing a whole different game.
I know. So for our listeners who've been with us through this whole discussion, let's try to break down some of the key things we've learned from Cohen's perspective.
Okay.
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that even with all the uncertainty in the world, strong fundamentals still matter.
Like, what do you mean?
A healthy economy, solid company earnings, and interest rates that aren't crazy. These are all things that create a strong base for growth for both individual companies and the whole market.
It's not just about surviving tough times.
Right.
It's about taking action and finding those opportunities, even when things look a little scary.
Yeah, Cohen's examples of Sweden and the Baltics really show how smart changes can bring markets back to life.
Absolutely. It's about making things easier for businesses, getting investors involved, and building efficient systems.
Those are things that make a real difference no matter what's happening globally.
And then we have the technology side of things. Nasdaq going all in on AI is pretty impressive. But it's their focus on responsible AI governance and making sure their employees are trained that's really encouraging.
Totally. It's not enough to just use new technology. You have to have a plan for managing it, controlling it, and making sure your people are ready for it.
And of course, we can't forget about crypto. Nasdaq is definitely carving out a space for themselves as a leading tech provider, focusing on things like trading infrastructure security and those post-trade solutions.
And choosing to hold back on direct custody services, at least for now, shows they're being strategic and thinking about the long game.
Absolutely. Now, you've been following the crypto world for a long time. Does Nasdaq's approach align with what you're seeing in the bigger crypto scene?
Definitely. That focus on providing institutional-grade technology is spot on.
Why is that?
Well, a lot of big players are still a little hesitant to fully embrace crypto.
Yeah, they're dipping their toes in.
Right. But they're definitely interested in figuring out how they can use the technology.
So Nasdaq is filling that need.
Exactly. They're providing the tools and services those big institutions need to test things out and get comfortable with crypto.
They're building trust and setting things up for what could be a huge wave of adoption in the future.
Exactly. And I also think their work with carbon markets is really interesting.
How so?
It shows how blockchain can solve problems in the real world that go beyond just finance.
It's like a sneak peek into a future where blockchain is as common as the internet is now.
Right, powering all sorts of transactions and systems.
So for our listeners who are everyday investors, what can we learn from all of this? How can we use these insights for our own investments?
Well, I think the biggest lesson is to not let the news and short-term ups and downs control your decisions.
Tune out the noise.
Exactly. Focus on the fundamentals, like economic trends, how companies are performing, and what's happening with interest rates.
And don't be afraid to embrace change and new technologies.
Right. But be smart about it. Understand the risks and rewards and make sure you're comfortable with the level of risk you're taking on.
And maybe most importantly, never stop learning.
Yeah, the financial world is always changing. Staying informed and learning new things is the best way to navigate it all.
Cohen's focus on employee upskilling at Nasdaq is a reminder for all of us that lifelong learning is key, no matter what you do.
It is. The future belongs to those who can adapt and are open to change.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our conversation about Tal Cohen's insights, I have one last question for our listeners.
Okay.
How do you think AI changing global markets and the rise of crypto will all come together to shape investment strategies in the years to come?
That's a tough one.
I know it's complex.
Yeah, but thinking about these trends is essential for staying ahead of the game.
Share your thoughts with us in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And as always, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on our next deep dive into the world of finance and technology.